freight efficiency with NACFE's Mike Roth and Friends.
Here in episode 106, we have Emilia Sibley. She's general manager of Terawatt, where she talks about how EV infrastructure seems like a solvable problem, what she's learned about the trucking industry, and the importance of listening to fleets. She also comments on how we are in a once-in-a-century transition and the need to lean into that transition. Today we have joining us Emilia Sibley. She's general manager at Terawatt. Really happy to have you on today, Emilia.
Yeah, likewise. I'm very happy to be here.
I think you really get what NACFE's trying to do in the marketplace, and that is, connect people and, help the industry understand all these technologies that are coming at us some ways pretty fast and find a way to, to make it easier than it otherwise would. Do you remember where we met and became friends?
Yeah, it's really the conference circuit, which we were just chatting about it, how many there are, but interacting at different events across the country and realizing we shared a lot of the same perspective. I think in a sea of faces, it became really nice to see yours again and again and swap ideas. And yeah, like you said, in a sort of a messy sea of ideas out there and some confusion out there about EVs. So I also just appreciated the clarity that you and NACFE bring to the industry and really trying to help fleets make good decisions about how to decarbonize, go electric, or become more efficient generally and do it successfully.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And that fits in with what we're doing here with this messy middle work. And but before we dig into that, tell us about yourself and or Terawatt, whichever order you want to go through, because we're interested in the company as well as how you came to work in trucking. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. I, since college, really, I wanted to work in the private sector solving climate problems. I have an MBA and a master's in sustainable systems and worked across a number of different companies doing something there, commercial building, energy efficiency, solar, found my way to fleet electrification. And, before Terawatt, worked at Change Energy, which was a somewhat notorious startup for those who've been in the industry for a while. It was an electric step van and infrastructure company with a lot of problems, honestly, just no funding, big promises without the execution, and working there was really difficult, not always being paid on time, to be honest, and a lot of hand waving about our future without a clear plan. So, but I caught the bug around solving charging infrastructure problems. It felt very solvable to me and impactful, especially in the medium duty, heavy duty space where it just is a big, you could create a big dent in the climate problem and do it in a way that can benefit fleets. And so I found my way to Terawatt, or I should say Terawatt found me about 3 years ago. And I knew that the company was different from my previous startup experiences, just fantastic leadership, good, solid investor backing, and grown-ups doing things with integrity.
What would you say you've learned about the trucking industry already? What's something that maybe we'll go to the polls of this? What's something that you have learned and love about the trucking community, either the end users or just the people? What have you learned that you really like? And then what are some things that you're finding in your work a little harder than maybe you thought? Let's go there.
Yeah. I mean, so much, learned so much. I think one thing I've tried to do at Terawatt is listen to fleets and take in what they need. I really want to build a solution to their problems rather than be a solution out looking for a problem to solve. And shippers and carriers we talk to, they want to decarbonize. They want to go electric with their fleets. They also want to run good businesses and thrive. So they're asking for charging solutions that help make this transition affordable and doable for them, which is very, valid. And thinking about this transition we're in, it's really a once in a century transition. The last one we went through was from horse and buggy to internal combustion engine. So it's not a small thing to ask fleets to adopt new technologies after 100 years of one way of doing things.
Right. Yeah.
And with the new technology, it really has to improve on a status quo that's had 100 years to dial itself in with incredible government support over that time frame. So it's a tough ask for fleets to do that, but there are genuine benefits that the trucking industry recognizes with EVs. The fuel and maintenance cost savings, the quiet, the better air and handling for drivers. So fleets recognize all of that. And they also recognize the cost. And we hear that the cost remains challenging, especially of the vehicles themselves. And we hear fleets there. And on the charging side, have really tried to come up with a way to spread infrastructure costs over multiple fleets and provide access like a fuel charge, not a capex fee,
Yeah.
to make it as simple and affordable as diesel fueling.
Yeah, I'm really glad to hear you say, that they're recognizing that these are better trucks in many ways. We quickly, and that's kind of what NACFI's been trying to scream at the industry. Scream's the wrong word, but help the industry understand these. We've called them
Totally.
difficult. We've called them difficult to monetize benefits. You quickly go
Mhm.
into, okay, well, they cost twice as much, they weigh more, and they go half as far. So how am I going to make these work? But the various things that you talked about, simpler, just such a simpler truck, and that will show up in maintenance and driver training and many other things, and the quietness, the clean air. These trucks will be able to drive through warehouses. Some of those things are hard to put money to, but are benefits that I
Mhm.
think the industry's starting to say, well, wait a minute, that opens up this opportunity for me, or that, or maybe it's more sustainable shippers that are asking for the help and so forth. But then it does come back to the cost piece. So
Yeah.
yeah, tell us about Terawatt. How long has it been around, and what exactly is the company doing?
Sure. Yeah, we've been around about 4 years. Our official mission is to power the world's fleets with the most reliable network of charging solutions. And so, what that really means is we're building charging hubs for all kinds of fleets, autonomous taxi and rideshare fleets on up to class eights, but providing the electric charging solutions so fleets can pull in, have ultra fast charging, and get where they need to go. Our sites are private but shared. So for class eights, this means we provide pull through stalls to accommodate a tractor trailer. We have ultra fast charging and an on site lounge for drivers to be comfortable in. And fleets only pay for the charging they need with a per kilowatt hour rate. So it's easy to access, easy to pay for. We're big on reliability. We have in-house technicians who we've invested in training and who are licensed to fix the chargers themselves. So we have a very rapid response time and high uptime at our sites. Fleets just can't deal with and shouldn't have to deal with a charger that's not working. It doesn't work for their business.
Yeah, so you're actually buying real estate and putting chargers in and operating like kind of like a truck stop. Is that a good
Yeah,
analogy?
it is. Yeah, think of it like an electric truck stop of the future, though, where because we're buying these and building them and operating them ourselves, we have the ability to listen to fleets when they say, hey, current truck stops, they're actually not secure enough. Can you make them more secure for our cargo? Can you pull in more truck parking? So we can actually make them design them to solve problems beyond just the electric fueling piece to make it a better overall experience for drivers and fleets.
I often hear that there's not a lot of real estate in places that they want to put current truck stops. Is that how is that challenge showing up? And I'm guessing that's different whether you're looking at sites along a corridor and where you have options to go at out in more rural areas than trying to put some in Southern California near a port
Yeah.
or this kind of thing. So how are you going about that?
Yeah, you're spot on. We're very picky about the sites that we select, and we have chosen sites with good locations near ports and intermodals and warehouse districts, right where fleets congregate. But it takes time to find the perfect sites in those areas because they're real estate constrained, and power constrained. So we have an in-house real estate team and power procurement team whose job is to put those building blocks together and make sure we have the right sites in the right locations. And it is a little easier when you get out into a corridor, a more rural area. There is more land, so that gets a little easier. But the places where we want to build sites first and where we're building them first are in the more urban and industrial areas like Southern
Yeah. So
California.
question I wanted to ask you about is power availability. I mean, there's all that talk about there could be electricity capacity, down the block or down the road or 5 miles away from where you might want to put the site. How true is that? I mean, especially when we get into some of these urban environments, is the grid that way or the edge of the grid that way where literally maybe a company could move or plan to charge not that far away, but put the charging in a different place and have much more access to the electricity?
Yes, there is some truth to that. Individual substations serve a
Mhm.
certain territory, and so power availability can be very localized to where that substation serves and how much capacity it has. So one fleet might have good access to power, and the other down the block might not. And it's a frustrating reality of the way the grid system works. We've been encouraging utilities to provide more updated maps, better information that's more easily accessible about capacity. So folks can more easily evaluate, hey, do I even have a prayer of getting power at my site in a reasonable time frame or not?
Right. So what's the size megawatt wise of these different locations you're looking at? And also I want to ask you about fast charging.
Yeah, love fast charging. I mean, we typically build our sites in phases of power. So it starts with between 5 to 10 megawatts in the first pull from the grid. And we'll put in a host of chargers to support that. At this point, 350 kilowatts is what we're installing for chargers, but we're excited to upgrade to 750 kilowatts and beyond when MCS gets standardized. We pull in a second phase of power to layer in another round of stalls, which we are targeting, in the next 2 to 3 years to do. So we're trying to match the demand and adoption of electric vehicles, and not oversupply with too many chargers too soon, but match that ramp up curve.
Yeah, so to give some perspective, if at 350 kilowatt charger, and if you have a battery pack at 700 kilowatt hour battery pack, it takes 2 hours to fully charge. I mean, just doing simple math, right, Amelia? But is that the way it works, or is can it not be that simple?
Yeah, most vehicles, electric Class 8 vehicles, will estimate an hour and a half of charge time to go, fill up the battery all the way. At our sites, we're seeing that. We're seeing folks use our sites for their base charging, to replace the need for charging at their own facilities, and they'll carve out that hour and a half at night or before and after their driver shift or in line with the driver's lunch break. But we're also seeing pop-up charging use at our site. So this is folks who have a regional haul and the EV can't necessarily make that full freight haul with the range of the vehicle. So they swing by our site and top up the battery in 15 minutes, get enough range to do another turn, say from the port to the drop off point and back, and get more use out of that expensive EV asset. So there's a couple of different ways to use offsite charging hubs that we offer.
Yeah, we kind of wrote about that in our Run on Less Electric Depot report we published around the 1st of July last year because the reality is that rarely does a truck get down to 0% state of charge and want to go all the way up to 100%.
Yeah.
We don't see that today. So, a pretty common 6x4 sleeper tractor will have 200 gallons of fuel, oftentimes a 100-gallon tank on each side, and or maybe 100 and then a 50. But let's say it's 200 gallons. That's 3 days of driving at 8 mile per gallon. But the truckload for hire carriers all tell us that, most all of the drivers fuel up before they go stop. So their average fuel is like 75 gallons. So,
Hmm.
even today they're filling up with, half a tank of diesel, which would be 100 gallons, which would be another 800 miles of driving ish. There's that, but these range limited, if they can find one of your locations and like you said, maybe they're at 10% state of charge. They find your location. They only need to get it up to 40% to make the rest of to get home. And
Exactly.
that's, we have sounds like the $6 million man, but for you older folks listening, but we have the technology to do that. I mean, we can very well predict with the load that's on the truck, with the weather we have and other things. I'm sure you guys have the telematics and the calculations that can help predict, are you going to get home? And particularly for those repeatable, consistent routes, the
Hmm.
truck will learn and the driver will learn, we don't need to go all the way to 100%. It's kind of my point.
No, not at all. And as folks know, the chargers and vehicles, they charge the fastest between about 20 and 80% state of charge. So that's the sweet spot. If you really want a full charge, you just go from 20 to 80%. But many fleets just need a little bit of charge to do an extra loop or to get home. And what we do is we have a very simple reservation system that anyone can use. It's simple as booking your Friday night restaurant table. And so it's easy to just slot in your vehicle into our site when you need it that day. If you're late to the site, that's fine. We know that there's port delays and traffic that can prevent a fleet from being on time. You just adjust that reservation. So we're trying to make this as simple and easy as diesel fueling today to help with the transition.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that because, we do hear stories from drivers, even when they reserve parking at a truck stop, they're not always, that parking spot's not only always available. And part of that, I'm not, poking the current truck stops, but a lot of that, if you have a clean sheet of paper and you look at things, new, like you are doing, you can possibly solve for some of those problems. So where are you building the current sites? I noticed you got a DOE grant, I think, to help. I'm assuming
Mhm.
that's still going forward in the current environment, but
Unprecedented times. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. But where's your focus? Where is your first stops, and along what corridors?
Yeah.
Give us some.
Yeah. We have 8 sites in Southern California that are in various states of development. Our first heavy duty site will have 20 chargers right near the port of Long Beach and LA. It's in Compton, California, right off the 710 there. And that will be going live in early April. So we're very excited to have that come online and begin to show the case studies of live fleets charging there. Pepsi is one of our early customers who's committed. So that's exciting. A fast follow there will be a site in Rialto, which is in the Inland Empire in the Agua Manta corridor there, kind of south of the San Bernardino area. And then we also have a site in Commerce, California, coming online at the end of this year. So that's, near the BNSF intermodal. And that provides really nice coverage in the Southern California area for this year. And then we have a corridor stretching from LA to El Paso. We did receive a grant through the Department of Transportation that was awarded to the New Mexico DOT, and they then pass it on to us to build 2 sites in New Mexico, which, on their own, really can't provide a good network, but connected to sites stringing all the way to LA, it creates a true corridor. So we are building out that I-10 corridor. The target is 2027 to have that online. And we've partnered with a group of blue chip carriers and shippers in the Smart Freight Center in what we're calling the I-10 Consortium. It's a group with big sustainability targets who need corridor charging ASAP to meet their fleet decarbonization goals. And so this is the private sector solving its own challenges with new partnership structures in a kind of it takes a village approach.
That's a pretty heavy freight corridor. I mean, there's a lot of goods coming into the ports and moving east, and that southern route takes you to Western Texas and then on into Dallas, Dallas and
Yeah.
Houston and other places where then there's other truck traffic that gets you into the Midwest and so forth. So that's exciting. Are all those sites along that corridor picked?
Yeah, we own those. We've already pulled in, secured the power there. So those are just in various stages of development now.
How do you work with other charging as a service companies or other companies that are trying to do the same thing? And or does it matter? I mean, I'm wondering if here, definitely in the early days, could you avoid a certain spot along the freeway and have somebody else do it, and
Mm,
then or how does that work into your strategies?
yeah, I think over time you'll see more roaming agreements and partnerships amongst charging providers. The more dots on the map, the more powerful for everyone. You get those network effects. I think it's just too early days to have all that fleshed out. We need to build some sites first, and demonstrate there is a real role here for offsite EV charging, and just take that burden away from fleets for having to do it all themselves on their own
Yeah, the
facilities.
other thing I think about there is allow us to what is the old saying? Plan, check, do, or what's the circle of or learn, plan, check, learn, and then give ourselves a chance to learn from some of the first ones. These are like first ever things.
Hmm. Yeah.
In your case, it's first ever major big charging hub. So uh, and they don't happen overnight. So you do the planning and then you do the construction and then you start operating, but we will adapt and change. And that's why sometimes people say, well, electric trucks aren't going to work because of this, that, and the other. Well, these are so early.
Hmm.
The trucks themselves, the charging, we're going to get smarter and improve and improve and improve. So I appreciate you and the team there. I noticed, and we talked about this last time we were together, but now that you're a general manager, what does that bring from both expectations of you at Terawatt, and really what do you want the industry to hear that Emilia will be doing over the next couple of years, and then also how do companies actually reach out to you or see what you're doing?
Yeah, I am excited about this role. It's my scope is managing all customer engagements and sales on the heavy duty side, the product pricing, policy, and marketing for heavy duty. We also have a general manager on the light duty side. So we're getting increasingly focused as a company. Um, my goal is to kind of make charging a less complicated, um, demystified solution, make it easier for fleets. So um, if I encounter you at a conference, I really want to just hear from you. What could be improved? Um, I'm grateful to be at a company that has a really incredible team, just the full stack of power, brain power in real estate and construction and hardware and policy. It's energizing. Can I make that pun?
Oh
It's
yeah,
great to
yeah, you
be.
certainly can. And I've been on, I've had sales responsibility and customer focus multiple times in my career, and it definitely matters who's behind you because
Yes,
you're
it's
making
really
you're making
true.
commitments and promises, and it's always good to have confidence. It's really hard when that's not there. Hey, we're running out of time, Amelia. This has been so much fun. As we close, we are in we call it the messy middle of this transition, but there's probably even more adjectives we could use. These are trying times. There's a um, maybe a look at multiple solutions rather than moving quicker to battery electric. Those are my words, but
Hmm.
what's your advice to fleets and or others supporting the fleets right now as to action or not action or education or
Yeah,
deployment? Kind of what are you seeing as kind of best for everybody to make some suggestions?
yeah. I mean, I'd say don't wait for the perfect conditions to adopt EVs. You have to lean in to create the conditions you want to see by engaging with it, testing and learning and pushing the sector to do better, to do better for fleets. So that's what Terawatt's here for. I love the work that we do, and I appreciate again NACV and the boot camp series, the run on less work. It's really fantastic everything you're doing to bring real world data to show what EVs can do, but with a practical mindset that's rooted in really deep knowledge of the freight world. So appreciate the work you're doing too.
Thank you so much for joining me, Emilia. It's been helpful. Have a good day.
Yeah, likewise. Great to talk to you, Mike.
Freight Efficiency with NACV's Mike Rosen Friends.